We shall commence this module by discussing about perfect market. A perfect market is based upon many assumptions like perfect competition, perfect information, complete markets, no transaction cost, etc. When any of these perfect assumptions violate, there occurs a market failure. Under market failure, the market may produce more than or less than what is socially desirable or not at all. Also, many a time there may be consumption and production spillovers which may affect those who are not directly involved in market exchange. Market failure, in short, implies a loss of allocative efficiency or a situation in which the allocation of goods and services is not efficient. In such a situation, the potential total surplus in the market may not be maximized and deadweight loss may exist. Market failures are often associated with information asymmetries, non-competitive markets, principal agent problems, externalities, or public goods. The existence of a market failure makes the case for the intervention of government to bring in optimum solutions in particular market. Government policy intervention can be in terms of taxes, subsidies, bailouts, wage and price controls, and regulations which may lead to an efficient allocation of resources. When there is an imperfection in the form of imperfect market structures like monopoly, oligopoly, monopolistic competitions, etc., these lead to lesser production and charge higher prices in the market than perfectly competitive market. In case of natural monopolies, a single firm gains from economies of scale originating from large-scale production. This implies that there is cost efficiency in this market structure compared to perfect competition. But such a natural monopoly may take advantage of its position by charging higher prices even when its costs are less. Thus, government, by taking over such monopolies or by regulating these, will lead to higher gains for the society as a whole in the form of decreasing. Let us analyze in detail the market failure and the role of government in decreasing the cost. After studying this module, you shall be able to know the meaning of market failure, learn about the different remedies for market failure, identify the role of government in the case of decreasing costs arising from imperfect form of market structure, evaluate the natural monopolies and their impact on market outcome, and analyze the transactions cost incurred in getting information about the market. Now, we shall discuss about market failure and its remedies. The market failure is a situation in which market fails to efficiently provide or allocate goods, services, and resources. This occurs due to the presence of certain imperfections in the market which constrain the market from achieving the optimum welfare. There are few reasons which cause the market failure and prevent the market from achieving the productive and allocative efficiency. The reasons are: number one, imperfect market structure. These include monopoly, oligopoly, duopoly, and monopolistic competition, which leads to non-achievement of Pareto optimal solutions because markets may fail to control the abuses of monopoly power. Secondly, missing or incomplete markets. For some goods and services, the relevant market may not exist at all, resulting in the failure to meet a need or want, such as the need for public goods, such as street lighting, highways, etc. It may also happen that for certain goods, the markets may be incomplete. For example, incomplete markets may fail to produce enough merit goods such as education and healthcare. Third is the presence of externalities. Externalities are said to occur in an economic system when a decision maker does not bear all the costs or reap all the gains from his actions. It means that externalities can be adverse as well as beneficial. Externalities which are not desirable are called as negative externalities. These occur when consumers and producers fail to take into account the effects of their actions on those who are not directly involved in the market exchange. Similarly, there are certain external effects of an individual's actions which confer benefits to others. It means that the social marginal benefit of such positive consumption and production is high, but private individuals underproduce or underconsume these commodities. In the case of externalities, parties external to the exchange bear cost or enjoy the benefits. These can be called as third parties, and there are individuals, organizations, or communities indirectly benefiting or suffering as a result of actions of consumers and producers attempting to pursue their own self-interest. As the allocation in the presence of externalities is not Pareto efficient, so market failure occurs. Fourthly, we will discuss about imperfect information as a cause of market failure. An allocation will be efficient only when all the parties involved are having complete information. But sometimes markets may not provide enough information because it may not be in the interest of one of the party involved in exchange to provide full information to the other party. This also causes market to fail and to produce optimally. The fifth region of market failure is public goods. The public goods are those goods which are non-extrudable and non-rival. Due to these characteristics of public goods, market systems fail to provide them efficiently and leads to allocative inefficiency. Now, let us discuss the remedies for market failure. The government is expected to step in whenever free market forces result in inefficiency in allocation. The government has four types of role in an economic system. First is legislative or regulatory, second is allocative, third is distributive, and fourth is as a stabilizer agent. For accomplishing these goals, there are basically two strategies which the government can use in order to reduce or eliminate market failures. First is using price mechanism. Market failure occurs because the price mechanism is not working efficiently at its own. So the government influences the price mechanism to exchange the behavior of consumers and producers. This would mean taxing the harmful products, thereby increasing their prices, and providing subsidies for the beneficial products. In this way, behavior is altered through financial incentives in the same way in which markets work to allocate resources. Second is using legislation and force. Another strategy for remedying market failure is use of regulatory framework of law to change the market behavior. This includes various command and control policies, regulatory policies, etc. This may involve banning cars which are harmful for environment and imposing higher social costs, or having in place a licensing system for the sale of alcohol, or by penalizing polluters in order to control the unwanted behavior. In majority of cases of market failure, a combination of these remedies is most likely to succeed. Moving on to discuss about the role of government in reducing distortions arising from imperfect market structure. In a perfectly competitive market, prices that are charged to consumers are equal to marginal cost. However, under imperfect competition, individual firms face downward sloping demand curves and they charge prices which are higher than marginal cost of production. As a result, consumers in such markets are faced with prices that exceed marginal cost, and the allocation of resources become inefficient. So, in a free market, firms may gain monopoly power. This enables them to set higher prices for consumers. In such a case, government regulation of monopoly can lead to lower prices and greater economic efficiency. An imperfectly competitive private market will always underproduce a good. It will be lesser than what is socially efficient. The government agencies, in order to correct such inefficiency, either prohibit monopoly or regulate the prices charged by these monopolies. Imperfect competition, such as monopoly, is generally seen as inferior to competition because monopolies earn economic profit. The monopoly also raises price above the level it would be in the competitive situation while output is lower. Also, the prices which individuals pay under monopoly are higher than they do under a perfectly competitive market structure, and output produced is lower. However, it must be noted that this argument does not consider the positives of market concentration. There are some reasons for which market concentration is not necessarily bad. The cost curves for monopolies are lower than those for competitors, and the innovation is more likely to take place in a larger firm that can finance large R&D expenditures. Also, there is a case of natural monopoly, those industries where the average cost curve is falling, which means that the least cost level of output would be large enough that a single seller can cater to the needs of the whole market. Recognizing the potential market failure associated with imperfect competition, the government needs to step in through direct regulation of industry and the establishment of antitrust legislation. This should not be done while taking the advantage of decreased costs that these imperfect markets gain on account of large scale production. Also, if we do not introduce adequate competition among the firms in an industry, then we would need to regulate their behavior. Next, we shall discuss about natural monopolies, decreasing costs, and rationale for government intervention. All those circumstances under which prices cannot coordinate efficient choices in consumption and production reduce the market efficiency, and this departure from efficiency is termed as market failure. This market failure makes for the role of government in allocating resources in a market economy. The perfect competitive market is considered to operate optimally at the minimum cost with no distortion. However, there are other decreasing cost industries which are characterized by such technologies where the marginal costs decline due to scale economies when a single firm meets the need of an entire market. For example, there are some industries like power, electricity, which experience lower marginal costs as the scale of operation is increased. In this case, the single producer could potentially provide the service at lower costs than could a number of competitive operating systems with higher average costs. This implies that the productive efficiency is higher with a single producer catering to the entire market. However, monopolists with such market power cannot be left unregulated because he may underprovide the good and charge higher prices. So, the regulation would be required to ensure that the monopolist would pass along the cost savings to its consumers. This situation is referred to as a natural monopoly, and these are generally found in industries like electrical generation, electrical transmission and distribution, water lines, oil and gas pipelines, and other operations for which there were significant economies of scale. Thus, under natural monopoly, it is logical to have one producer because free markets may lead to inefficient allocation and higher costs due to competition. For the natural monopolist to share the savings on costs due to economies of large scale, it is desirable that government grants the most optimum company the right to conduct business, thereby decreasing the cost for both business and consumers. This will bring in efficiency in production and will save the public money. If we compare monopoly with perfectly competitive markets, we encounter a lot of difference between the two. When competition exists, the equilibrium quantity will be higher and price will be lower. With this, it can be argued that competition is better for consumer welfare. However, monopolist is better off due to its ability to earn abnormal profits due to lack of any competitors in the market. Let's now talk about monopoly and productive efficiency. In terms of productive efficiency, a monopolist has an advantage. This is because it is more likely to produce at the lowest possible cost for the level of demand. If competition is brought in, the monopoly will lead to an increase in average costs as output per firm will fall. Next, let us discuss monopoly and allocative efficiency. As the monopolist charges a price above the marginal cost, there is allocative inefficiency associated with monopoly. Higher prices earn abnormal profits to the monopolist, while the competitive firm ends up with only normal profits. Thirdly, let us discuss monopoly and dynamic efficiency. Monopolists will be dynamically efficient as there is an incentive involved to invest in research and development and creating innovative products, because these can reap future profits for the monopolist. However, due to the presence of perfect knowledge under perfect competition, firms will be unwilling to invest because any innovation will quickly become general knowledge to all firms in the industry, thereby removing any future rewards. Looking at this analysis, we can see that there is a dynamic efficiency and lower costs associated with monopoly, which can be used to improve overall efficiency of the market. The governments can use a variety of policy measures in order to regulate monopolies. Number one, subsidies should be used in order to compensate monopolist for his productive efficiency and to induce him to lower the equilibrium price and increase quantity in an attempt to achieve efficiency. Secondly, some form of price controls can also be implemented in order to regulate monopolies. Different regulating bodies can be set up to ensure that monopolists do not exploit consumers. Many such regulatory authorities have actually been set up to regulate the behavior of large natural monopolies. Price controls in the form of price ceilings will encourage monopolies to reduce their costs in order to increase profits, thereby improving productive efficiency. Monopolists, however, oppose such ceilings, arguing that it hampers their ability to sustain dynamic efficiency in their operations. Thirdly, privatization and deregulation are the other government measures which are used to improve the efficiency of these natural monopolies. The public ownership is generally equated to inefficiency. Therefore, deregulating the monopolies, but with certain caveats, may raise the allocative efficiency. Deregulation allows competitors to enter markets that were protected by legal barriers to entry. Competition would hopefully drive down the prices, and these may lead to the creation of regional monopolies like railways and water companies. Taxing monopolies in order to alter their pricing behavior by taking away abnormal profit is another tool that the government can use. Taxes, however, are unlikely to improve efficiency. This is because taxes would have no incentive for firms to reduce prices or costs. In fact, taxes may discourage research and development and innovation due to loss in current profits. Our analysis implies that if there is a natural monopoly, it does not necessarily mean that there is a substantial economic inefficiency. There are several ways which may restrict and optimize the behavior of a monopolist. Number one, the ease of entry into the industry by other firms should be established so that the threat of potential competition can limit the incumbent monopolist's ability to restrict the output. Secondly, an optimum pricing policy involving fixed charges and low unit price could be chosen by the monopolist, which can increase its profits as well as benefit the consumers. And thirdly, the grant of monopoly rights through bidding to the supplier with minimum price quotas can raise economic efficiency. Let us now understand the transaction cost linked with deriving information in the market. Transaction costs are the cost of engaging in market exchange. In a perfect market, it is assumed that all the consumers and producers involved in the market exchange possess perfect information about the market. However, in reality, information is less than perfect. In the exchange between two parties, one party is always better informed and the other party has to incur costs in order to obtain information about the market. When parties to economic transactions have different amounts of information and different objectives, they will behave strategically. The situation constitutes a market failure in the sense that if each party had equal information available to it, a socially superior bargain could have been struck. When trying to assess market information, parties need to incur costs which make the cost of market transactions high. So, whenever consumers and producers incur costs in becoming informed about market opportunities and completing market transactions, markets will not result in inefficient outcomes. In such a scenario, regulatory framework to reduce these transaction costs and information asymmetries can improve efficiency. In the provision of this regulatory framework, government has an important role. The achievement of Pareto optimality provides a rationale for the government intervention in market outcomes. There are large number of regulatory mechanisms available to promote efficient behavior and divide gains from it among the parties, thereby decreasing costs. When information is provided by the government on a large scale, it becomes a public good whose marginal cost of provision is almost zero. Markets resolve some of these problems by signaling, but a complete solution in the form of government regulation is required for the markets to work efficiently. Now we will summarize what we have discussed in this module. Under market failure, the market may underproduce or overproduce or may not produce a good or service at all. Market failures are associated with information asymmetries, non-competitive markets, principal agent problems, externalities or public goods. There are two strategies for the government in order to reduce or eliminate market failures, that is using the price mechanism, and secondly government legislation and force. The prices which individuals pay under monopoly are higher than they do under a perfectly competitive market structure, while the output produced is lower. Natural monopolies are characterized by extremely low average cost of production due to economies of large scale production. There is a case for government regulation of natural monopoly to ensure that the monopolist would pass along the cost savings to its customers. And lastly, the regulatory framework of government has a role in reducing the transactions cost and information asymmetries, which can in turn improve market efficiency.